This podcast has been brought to you by Voyager's World. We are building the most amazing hospitality network. Please visit our website, join us for free, and start participating.
So we are in my kitchen. I have the privilege of having with me here a guy that is famous, but I want to explore the through some conversation, the humanity and the more interesting aspects of him that I think that the famous aspect doesn't cover. He's much more interesting than the media would let you think about. And here is Mike Spencer. Very nice to see you. And we are in my kitchen having beers that we bought in the market. So this is a super happy way of doing a podcast. If anybody does a Google search on you,
Okay.
not just you show up on the first page of Google, you are the entire first page of Google under name.
Yeah.
So let's get that out of the way first. So you are known as being the most or one of the most travel men in the world. Tell us about that, and so we can go into the really interesting things.
Okay. Yeah, it got quite funny. I've gone viral on the internet twice. Once when I was first tourist in Somalia, which was kind of funny. All my Facebook and email seized up with blinking tens of thousands of friend requests and messages and everything, and I had to mass delete them all. But same thing happened when I finished the world trip. So my 23-year trip to see every country on the world quite thoroughly. And I think if you Google Mike Spencer Bown now, you come up with thousands of hits within, I don't know, half a second or something ridiculous. But mostly, a lot of them were just media who didn't even interview me. They just kind of stole photos from professional photographers who had pictures of me and wrote something up in Tamil or whatever language it was. So I did get a lot of angry letters from professional photographers saying, "Hey, you didn't pay me for use of this photo." And I say, no, it was just like it went viral on the internet. It's just what happens. But I think why it happened, why it went viral is because there's a lot of people who've seen every country. Like maybe 300 people have seen every country on Earth. But almost all of them are people who would just put their foot across a border and say, okay, I got the stamp, done. Like they arrive in Frankfurt airport and they say, Germany, done. Whereas for me, I don't count that I've seen a country unless I go there, meet the people, have random adventures and really cover the territory and get a good feel for it. And then I'll say, okay, done. And if not, I'll come back and do it again.
So you're not just counting the countries, you are really making sure that you spend some time and you have some adventure.
Yeah, and I'd say I didn't even count the countries. So for instance, when I'd been 3 times to Seoul and I got some restaurants and a hotel there, when people ask me, have you been to South Korea? I used to say no. But then a few years ago, I actually went to South Korea. I went all around on the bus, in the car, and I looked at this and that and the other thing, to Busan, all the way to the north. And now I say, okay.
When you were approached by media, and you gave interviews and stuff like that, was it pleasurable or was it irritating? Was there any good value out of it?
For me, it was pleasurable because I'd made a certain decision. So I know a lot of people in the free party scene, so the rave scene for England and Western Europe. And when I finished my last country, second last country, I headed back to do my last one, which was Ireland. But first I stopped in England and I saw a lot of my friends from the party scene. And they were saying, oh yeah, you should get a lot of media involvement, try to go viral on the internet again, like you did when you went to Somalia. Which was just like random, I went to Somalia, it was like someone from one of the major news agencies ended up interviewing me, a Somali journalist, and it went viral, and it was quite interesting, but I couldn't take much advantage of it commercially, it was just for amusement. But they said, you should be more serious about it and see if you can get a lot of media attention. And I said, okay, you know what, I agree, because they were all pressing this upon me, and I said, okay, I'll agree, I'll say yes to everything. So that's what I did. So for instance, I was at a rave, and I was about to cross over into Ireland, and one of my friends who's a Norwegian filmmaker who lives in Buenos Aires, and he'd made a short documentary that partially included me for when he was filming people who were going to float down the entire length of the Amazon. And he'd been suffering from dengue fever in the Amazon, waiting for guys to show up to float down. And he'd already, he was already shaking with fever, and he said he was so glad when he saw me because he said, "Oh, finally someone who wants to float down the Amazon." I thought there'd be so many, but there aren't many. And I said, "Yeah, I'm about to do it." So I did a little interview with him in the jungle, and then later he through Facebook, I'd said, "Okay, I'm about to do my last country." He said, "No, wait a second, just do a bit more partying near London. I'll show up." So he went out to Norway, got some funding, came with all his cameras and everything else. And he said, "Okay, now." So now I take the ferry across from Holyhead over to Dublin. And before I arrive, he says, "Do you mind if I call ahead for some media?" And I'm like, "I'll go right ahead." So he calls like a television station. And when I arrive on the docks, they do an interview with him. And then they said, "Oh, you're so good for interviewing. Like, really, that was exciting. Do you want to go on a talk show?" Because I know a friend who has contacts with the Ray Darcy show. And I said, "Okay, good." So they said, "Okay, next morning." So the Norwegian filmmaker Anders Flatlandsmo, he went off to a hotel. I went off to my usual hostel. And then in the morning, like a taxi comes, takes me out to the talk show, and I go and do that. And that was very successful as well. Then there were all these call-ins from the talk show of people who were excited by my story, and they were offering me this, that, and the other thing. So they gave me a whole list of free offers of people around Ireland who'd offered to show me things, take me kayaking, take me up mountains, show me this or that. I could stay for free in all these hotels. And so I just went off that list. So for Ireland, everything was free. And I said yes to everything. So every newspaper or interview or everything else. And so everyone recognized me in the street. So when I'd be walking along, and people would call me in and say, "You want some fish and chips from my shop?" And they wouldn't take any money. They'd just feed me. And I was getting too drunk because everyone was just buying me drinks. And, when I came into a bar, they'd refuse to accept money. So I was very well known in Ireland for the, almost a month that I was there. So, Ireland, I was just swirled along in it like a wave of goodwill.
Yeah.
And I just said yes to everything. So when people would say, "Can you give a speech to the local school?" I'd say yes. So I go and they assemble the students, and I give a speech. So it was full-time media. So I was just saying yes to all these media things. But I thought, I don't want to discriminate against them and say yes to only the one that makes me money or might make me money. I mean, in fact, none of them really make me money in a sense. But
it gives you some results of one kind or another. Yeah, I would be an hypocrite if I didn't value that, because when I travel, I use social media to my advantage. I post my itinerary with the approximate dates. I tag everybody that I know along the way. I use Facebook, those advertising tools that Facebook use, so I put a little bit of money in it, and then it shares with people that have the same interest. So, for example, now my next trip is from here to Greece, and I use Facebook, and I make Facebook share my itinerary with everybody that speaks English and likes motorcycles and couchsurfing along 12 countries that will be between here and
you're
Greece.
Even more organized than me.
Yeah, so I do that, and of course it brings me a lot of people that are interesting. They want to meet, and they offer to get together and meet their friends, and so it's not. I'm not using traditional media, no, so not TV and newspaper, but I'm using the social media the same way. And I use it to make friends and arrange opportunities along the way. I respect that. It just doesn't matter to me, Oh, I've been to 30 countries. Okay. That doesn't say anything to me, But, what matters is, are you paying attention as you go? Are you traveling slow enough?
Yeah.
Because traveling by airplane, in and out of a place, it may not matter at all. You're just a consumer. You consume a airline ticket, you consume a hotel stay, and probably a dinner. So you are a consumer, and then nothing made any difference. You definitely didn't make a difference in the life of anybody there if you were just a consumer. But if you visit and go slow and meet people, then it can be different. It can be important. But I also imagine that if you on purpose try to chase countries, the list of countries also kept changing while you were on the road, right? So I bet that a bunch of countries were recognized or started, and some countries ended, during that time.
Yeah.
Which ones are the ones that you remember that you had to rethink of it?
That appeared out of nowhere? I would say it only happened to me once, because normally I'm so thorough in how I visit a country that even if a place breaks away, like for instance, now Kiev has broken away from Ukraine. But I've been there already. You know, I would go down there to Sevastopol and to Yalta. So I already consider that I've been there, even though now it's something else. So, but one time I was kind of surprised where East Timor broke away. And I spent like many months I'd been everywhere in Indonesia. But I hadn't specifically been to East Timor, because I had heard it. There was a lot of war there. I didn't really know how interesting it would be to go. But when it broke away, you know, then it became under UN Transitional Authority. So I ended up going there. I went to West Timor, and then I made my way across the various towns, getting closer to the border. And I had some interesting experiences. Like one time I was in a bar, and I noticed this guy's face, and I think I've seen him before, but how's that possible? Because I'm taking van from town to town, getting closer to the frontier with East Timor. And I thought, why should it be the same face? So I sent a beer to his table, and like, cheers, and okay, he drinks the beer. And then, you know, he kind of comes nearer, and I send him another beer, and I was getting kind of drunk, and I say, oh, come to the table, and he sits with me. And I say, so what you doing? And he can speak a bit of English. And he says, I'm a spy. Really?
That was the first thing he told you.
Yeah, he's getting
what
drunk
already. What a good spy.
Yeah, he says, I'm a spy. And then I say, come on. And he goes, no, I'm a spy. And he shows under his shirt, he's got guns. And I say, ooh. So I say, okay, cheers to that. And I say, who are you spying on? And he says, you. In front of me. And I say, really? Really? I say, have you been following me? Because yes, we heard the foreigner is coming near to the frontier. I've been told I have to find out all about you. And I say, here, I make it very easy for you and your boss. I tell you anything you want to know. So he's saying, what's the reason you come near here as a war zone? And I say, I'm just a backpacker, and I just want to meet the people and see what happened in Dili. So eventually, you know, and then he drinks some more beer, and then now he's drunk. And he started to say things that not really, like I was thinking he's a spy, but he's not like James Bond, he's something else. Because now he's saying, I don't like it here. You know, I'm a Muslim from Madurai, and they position me here, but all the girls are Christian, and I can't get any girl. They won't talk to me because I'm Muslim. So I want to go back to my village.
So it became a real human connection there, even though it started as a bureaucratic government, action.
Yeah. And he's a guy that a lot of people might think was quite nasty, because he's secret police. He was positioned in Dili for like the 2 years before, which is very nasty. So I can imagine a lot of human rights abuse went on in his spy operation. But, you know, at the same time, he's a person and a human.
Yes, yes. Well, I can tell that from, some people that I know, some people in my own family, that if you look at their resume, you would say that person is a monster. But I knew them as a relative. I knew them as a person, and I know how caring or nice or cool or troubled they were as a person. Yeah. And I had a very cool situation in Rio when I was visiting a friend there that I met through the Couchsurfing website. And we were riding motorcycles in Rio. Yeah. And I said, oh, this is the place where my father used to, to bring prisoners, from political prisoners and all that. And he said, oh, this is the building where my father was a torturer here. And we figured out that our fathers knew each other.
Oh, wow.
Through their work. But we don't really know their work. We only know them as the failing or nice human being that they were. Yeah. And we pretty much spend the rest of the day, drinking and telling stories about our families. Yeah. That we discovered by accident that had some vague connection.
I had a similar one with even back in Canada. I was talking to one of my friends he's actually half Ukrainian, half Cree tribal, and I was mentioning that my mother had been doing some genealogy and found out a relative from our family had been with the Royal Canadian Mounted Police for trying to put down the rebellion after the Frog Lake Massacre. I think it was out in the prairies. And he fell off his horse when they were trying to ride back into the fort. And the natives captured him, and they cut out his heart and put it on a spear. And they were going around the campfire with his heart on a spear going, wah, 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 like that. And then my friend started laughing, and he said, oh, my relatives were there on the native side. So maybe they were the ones with your relatives' heart on the spear, and we were having a good laugh.
Yes. Of course, every conflict has that. No, I think it's a privilege when we discover that we are somehow connected to it. Because it's funny. It's a good story. But here in Ukraine, for example, a lot of people, if you ask them, "Are you Ukrainian?" They say, "Oh yeah, I'm Ukrainian, of course." Yeah, I say, "But are you Russian too?" And a significant number of them will also say, "Yeah, I kind of am, kind of Russian." I say, "Why?" Then I explore that. So why? One is because he went to school in Russia. The other because he grew up while this was Soviet Union. So he thinks also as Russian. Others because the wife is Russian, half of the family is Russian. Some of them lived a significant part of their life in what is Russia now, and then came back. And that brings me to the conclusion that in this war, where we have Ukrainians and Russians shooting each other, it's possible that you have cousins shooting each other, or friends or neighbors, because the history of these two countries is so connected, which makes it even more sad. Because you have even have a friend here that his girlfriend, half of the family is in Crimea, the other half is here, and just to meet for Christmas, for example, is an entire project. They have to go to Russia, and then they have to take the train into Crimea because they cannot go directly, and the paperwork has to be put together carefully. It's a drama. I also visit a guy in Tijuana that I'm hoping to do a podcast with him, Jaime. Jaime is an amazing figure there. And he showed me photos and told me about the wall between Mexico and U.S. That when he was a kid, there was no wall at all. It was just like, okay, there's Tijuana here, and San Diego is over there, but there was this desert and a little bit of a part that is beach, but the city was not closed. It was still a significant bit of desert to go through, but people would just drive and visit each other. No, there was no concern at all.
It used to be the same on the Canadian side too.
Then when he was a teenager, then they put a fence, but it was like just a wire fence. So on holidays, sometimes the families would come together and they would make a picnic on both sides of the fence, and they would pass beers and food through the fence. Or play volleyball on both sides of the fence, and make fun of it. And occasionally, of course, at night people would just jump the fence. But then later it became a bigger and taller and more serious fence, and now there is all the border patrol. You cannot even get close to it.
Same thing on the Canadian side. So my mother lives very close to the border, and it used to be you just walk down into the States and buy some ice cream and walk back. And then, even in early '90s, it started to get more serious, and there might be some trouble. Some people still did it. I did it a few times. But then people were saying you shouldn't do that anymore. And then soon afterward, you'd be captured and put into prison. And you could even be kept for a long time for doing the same thing.
I think there are still some cities that the city is on the border, right? So border control is actually outside of the city. It happens in a few places, but in Mexico there is no such a thing. The wall went right through it, and there was no way to mix it physically. But it is now there is a new joke about it that they say that if Americans keep saying all this nonsense about building a bigger wall with Mexico, then we have to do it fast because the Canadians are going to build a wall too, to separate themselves from that bullshit.
But here's something I heard. I'm not sure if you know the truth to this, but people tell me the Mexicans built a wall on their southern border with Guatemala.
Is that true? I don't know.
I heard someone say this. Now I never looked it up. I'm not even sure where I looked it up.
But even the wall, if I drove through I drove along the border of Mexico all the way from Texas to California. And in some parts, yes, there is a wall and or a fence or something, and that is a little bit of an exclusion zone, which is like 50 meters, 100 meters on each side, and only the border patrol goes through. But as you get far from the cities, there is nothing. Sometimes that is literally nothing. It's just desert. And that is like one barbed wire, and a sign every 100 meters saying, stay out. But there are blimps. There is a lot of electronic surveillance. That is, of course, frequently you see border patrol driving around, and also on the roads as you come close to the border or you are leaving the area, the border patrol has checkpoints, and they check on you and all that. And of course, if you're American driving around, it's just silly, But in fact, they are doing the job of controlling it, and the border, that desert is tough. Sometimes people think, you just go there and then you bring a gallon of water and walk it. It's not that easy. It's the distance that you would have to cover from nothing to nowhere else until you are someplace that matters, that you can get into transport. And the conditions there are really tough. Walking the desert is no joke. And I know because I did it, but I did it east to west and then west to east. But it's no joke. You don't get far from the road unless you really know what you are doing, or you are really desperate. You have incredibly strong reasons to go.
It used to be that the borders were much easier, I felt, even in the whole Central American region. Because I was first there in the early 90s, and I hadn't arranged any visas. So you think, okay, I would have had a big problem because I needed a visa for every single country. But actually,
because of Canada.
Yeah. So I should have had a visa for every country, but I just talked to people, and they bring me into a room with like some fans on the ceiling, and everyone's sitting around with guns, looking almost like from Wild West, and they'd say, "No pasa," like this, and I would just talk to them a little bit in primitive Spanish, and they would say it's because they don't have a visa, and I said, "Oh no, but can I pay you the money that a visa would cost?" And I heard that it's $20 for a visa. They say, "Oh well, if you gave us the $20, we can we can let you pass, right?" So I just, in a way, I just bribed my way across every border, and it saved me months of work. Imagine to get every visa for every country. Like there's so many countries through there, so I didn't have to do it at all.
But was there any place that was really difficult, to get in, or that you nearly gave up?
I have a few places like that, and I have a few places. Maybe I'll tell you the story first of a place where it wants to be its own country. This is Tuareg region of Niger toward the north.
Okay.
So I got quite far into there. I got all the way to Agadez before the police confiscated my passport. They wouldn't let me go further. And so I was hanging around this place where there used to be a lot of fighting between the Tuaregs, and now it's probably, who knows, could be fighting again. But I met this guy, and he was rebel commander for the Tuareg. Now, and this is a very tribal region. Like once there was a guy coming by with his camels, and he had an injury. And I was speaking to this guy I just met. I said, "What was the problem?" And he says, a sword fight. I'm going, "Oh, injured in a sword fight? Wow, you don't hear that much." He says, "Yeah, a sword fight over a girl." And I was thinking, "Oh, this could be like from 1,000 years ago to have this kind of injury." And the guy looked like the sort of guy who might have a sword fight over a girl, right? So, but then I was talking to this guy, and he said that he was a rebel commander. He showed me some clips from CNN of him being interviewed, and he was fighting against the Hausa tribe, and they wanted to make a separate country.
So he carries around like a phone with his interview?
Yeah, he put his interview on.
That's his business card.
Yeah. And it was him for sure, so he was the rebel commander. And but then I had a question, because I said, okay, everybody in the West is aware of this problem, and I don't know how you dealt with it, but we say that war is one of the most expensive things. It's so expensive. It's almost ridiculous how much it costs. And I say, how can Tuareg, like, I see you have some camels, you have some orange trees in the oasis. How can you afford war? Like, really, how can you afford war? And he says, I don't hear this question much, but it's a very strange way that we could afford the war. He said, what we would do is take some boys, and we tell them to take cell phones. And they should go out to every single oasis, even the small oasis that nobody used. And there they wait with their cell phone. And he said that they'd see a cloud of dust. And then coming from the south, it's a truck, or maybe several trucks. And they're going to the oasis to get water. And he said, at this point, we told the boys to call us. And when they receive the call, the Tuareg tribe gathers, and they're all have their rifles. And then they see the trucks are trying to get water. They surround them, and they're pointing their rifles, like, give up. And they find every time the truck is full of armed men. But the men see they're outnumbered, they're surrounded. They put down the rifle, And then he said we take the rifles and we capture these guys. Then we look in the back of the truck. All the time, it is full to the top with bags of cocaine, pure cocaine. And I said, what? You sell the cocaine? And he goes, no, we don't even know it's cocaine, but we know it's worth money. We take the truck, we take the cocaine, we take the weapons. But we let the guys go and we say, hey, go tell your boss, we have his cocaine. If
then he buys it back.
Yeah, and they would say, if he wants it back, he should go to this GPS point and leave a bag. He said, we started to say, leave a bag with 1 million euro. But without complaint, they were always getting. So he said they were increasing the price. By the end of the war, they were saying 3 million. They were still getting it. And so they were getting an average of 2 million. And I said, well, how many of these trucks did you capture? He said, 75. So that's 150 million euros. And you can imagine you can make a war with that. So I said, well, okay, so now you got the money. I see how you got the money. But how do you get the weapons? He said, we go to the border with Libya. There were all these dodgy guys in the desert, and they'd have all these kind of weapons. He said, one time I had to test a weapon, because it used to be, if you're buying rocket launchers, once you test one, it means you bought the batch. Like, you're not allowed to just test one and say you don't buy. So they negotiated a price. They were Italian-made rocket propelled grenades. And finally, he's the guy who had to shoot it. And he's like, okay. And he remembered to keep his mouth open, because they heard the rumor that you can explode your teeth if you keep your mouth shut when you fire the rocket. So he fired it off. It worked. So they made the purchase. So they were getting all these weapons. And he said they were fighting very successfully against Niger government. But then the government brought in 2, I think, Russian-built helicopters. And he said when that happened, the helicopters could really see what we were doing. And we decided we'd make a truce for now. And I think now they're back fighting. I think the Tuaregs, recently they were fighting again. And I think the French were opposing them. So here's a guy who wanted to carve out his own country. And it was very dodgy and hard to get into, because they were confiscating my passport. But I was able to ride with him and go quite deep into the Air Mountains. So he was showing me his homestead and some other very interesting places that I wouldn't have seen otherwise. So in a sense, that's hard to get through, but it's not really official. And I was blocked there. I tried to contact the Algerian embassy and the Libyan embassy, but I think the Algerian consul in Gao was killed. So I talked to him and I said, "Can I come for a visa?" He's like, "Okay." And then by the time I was trying again, like finally I was ready. I found out he'd been killed by I don't know, bandits or something, or maybe rebels. So I couldn't get success. And then the one in Agadez, he wouldn't see me. And the Algerian guy, I missed by 2 days. So he said, "Yo, yeah, come back in 2 days. I'll give you the visa." And then when I came back, he said, "No, change of policy, no visas." And so really I was stuck. So I spent about a month there trying. Eventually I was hanging out with the people smugglers, and they were telling me they couldn't really understand. They were speaking in French, and I was trying to speak to them in French, but my French is not good. And I think they misunderstood what I was trying to do, because they said, "Pay me $300. And within 2 weeks, you'll be picking cucumbers in Spain." And I was like, actually, I don't need to pick cucumbers. I just wondered, can you get me a visa? But they didn't understand that, because they just come by the back roads. And they use the same roads that the petroleum smugglers use. And petroleum smuggling is a very dangerous job, because you're making some money also. But I think it was, you get a year in jail for every 2-liter jug they catch of petroleum you're trying to smuggle. So it's a very serious penalty.
In what country is that?
This was I think it was between Libya and Niger, but it might have been between Algeria and Niger.
The impression that I got going through Transnistria, which is part of Moldova with border with Ukraine.
Yeah.
But the impression that I got there is that it's a country that doesn't really exist. It's like, it's some checkpoints on the road, and there are guys in military uniform and some allegiance, and of course they are willing to protect that territory so much that Moldova couldn't just take it back so far.
Yeah.
But outside of the military standpoint, there is nothing there. The farms are empty. There is no traffic on the roads. There is nothing, because by creating that country, they destroyed it. They destroyed all the economic activity.
But did you see the funny nightclub? Or maybe it's not there anymore.
No, I don't.
This was maybe a highlight. So I had a mugger try to attack me. It looked like we were getting in a fist fight. I was trying to speak to him. Yeah, but then it looked like we were about to fight, and then he just leaves. So I don't know. I don't know if he's mugger or not, but he was someone, he'd demand my money, and he had his fists out, and I was ready, and then he leaves. So I'm not sure if he was mugger or not. But then afterward, I saw a nightclub, and I thought it was very funny. Because they went, so sometimes they have face control. And you wait in line maybe a long time, and then maybe because of the face control, they say no, or for some other reason they won't let you in.
Uh-huh.
But they thought rather than have you wait in line and be disappointed when they tell you no, they made an aluminum sign with the printing of the different conditions under which they wouldn't let you in, just so you know and you don't waste time.
Okay.
And so they had like a guy holding a knife with X through it. Okay,
Uh-huh.
if you're carrying a knife, they don't let you into the club.
Okay.
Then they had like a guy holding a rifle and a handgun. Of course, you know, you have this, not. And then they had like a guy holding a grenade. Okay, yeah, I can see why they don't want that. A guy with a grenade.
I guess they don't want that.
Yeah, but then I thought the funniest one, a guy holding a flaming Molotov cocktail and an extra. Imagine someone waits in line and he's got a flaming Molotov cocktail and they say, sorry, not with that. Put it out and drink it and then maybe.
Oh no, man. What was the most difficult visa that you had to get during this?
I had some very difficult visas. So I have probably the most difficult was Saudi, but that was so frustrating. I'm not even sure I want to talk about it. It was so difficult. Like, I spent months to get into it. But I had another one, Guinea Equatorial. I tried for many years to get into Guinea Equatorial. And sometimes I had failures, or I had hilarious failures.
Whereabouts is that? You keep saying number of names of countries that I don't even know what continent you're talking about.
Okay, well, Guinea Equatorial. So imagine that Cameroon is a chocolate Easter bunny. So most people do, because it kind of looks like one. And imagine that the little cotton tail on the end of the bunny, this is the island, and that's Guinea Equatorial.
Guinea Equatorial, okay.
Yeah. Right. So I tried for the longest time to get in. And the closest I ever got was one time I was in Addis Ababa. And a friend who was trying to help me with getting into it said, why don't you apply there? Because that's African Union headquarters. So they're probably used to a lot of strange visa requests. And I said, okay. So I went over to the embassy. And there was a woman there who was saying, oh, you can't really see the ambassador. He's partying because it was coming near to New Year's. And it was only 2 weeks before New Year's. It was 2 weeks before New Year's. Like, okay, he starts to party early. But so anyway, I kept coming back. I was waiting for him to finish partying and come back. And in the meantime, this woman was an extreme Christian. So she would lecture me about Jesus. And I had to listen very politely because I knew that she's the one who's the gatekeeper for whether I get to see the ambassador. So I'm listening to her go on and on about Jesus. Then a few days later, I come back, try again. The ambassador is gone. Finally, I've spent more than a week at this. And I come back and she says, the ambassador is in. But I can hear shouting. And I can hear him yelling, everyone in this embassy is an idiot except for me, and slamming of doors. And I go, oh no, he's back and he's drunk and he's angry. So anyway, I can go in to see him. I sit down at the table and I push some papers toward him. He just doesn't even look at the papers. He just writes with red ink, $500. And then he pushes it back to me. And I'm like, oh no, such a bribe. And I probably should have taken it because it caused me more trouble to try. But I felt it's just too much. And I said I'd think about it because I wanted to get my papers back. And then as I was leaving, the woman was shouting at me. She says, you don't want the visa? And I say, no, I have to go. And she's saying, Jesus loves you as I leave and I escape. And so this was, one of the funnier failures. But finally, I thought I should go back to Cameroon, where I tried 2 times before and failed, because I felt that I got a little bit further before I failed there. And I thought, okay, I have some chance. So I went first of all to Douala. They wouldn't see me. I went to Yaoundé, the capital, and there I checked into the Ideal Hotel in Carrefour Nyomyak. So it's quite central, and it's kind of in the embassy district, even though it's a brothel. But, all the African hotels are brothels if they're a little bit upscale. So that's what they use a hotel for. So anyway, I have to endure living in this filthy brothel. I was suffering malaria at the time, but I kind of got over it. And, that's another story in itself. But then all day, every day, I'd go down and speak to this embassy. And finally, after a lot of effort, I was friendly enough with the guard that she'd let me in. And I could actually speak to the ambassador. And then the ambassador gave me a list of demands. And most of them I could meet because they're the normal ones. But 5 were impossible. So I looked at my 5 impossible demands and I found ways to try to make them possible. So one of them was, for instance, I want a letter from the police that says you're a good person. And I think, okay, it's this problem in Canada because we're not a police state. So the police doesn't keep a dossier of who is a good person or not a good person. They're not concerned with their opinion of the morality of citizens. But I thought, okay, well, my younger brother married a woman from Europe. So he must have had something for the police for when she applied for Canadian citizenship. So I said, okay. So I talked to my brother online. I said, can you send me this document that you use when your wife asks for citizenship? You must have had something with the police. He goes, oh, yeah, we had to register with RCMP. And then I say, okay, can you change the name? Put my name, put Mike Spencer Bown in there. And okay, he does this, sends it back, and I'm like, okay, good. And so this is one example. So 4 of them I could do. Now the 5th one was, I need a personal invitation of a very important person from Guinea Equatorial. And I thought, okay, I'll just bribe someone to get this. So I would hang out near restaurants where people from Guinea Equatorial like to go. And I would speak to locals and I'd say, can you invite me in? Are you an important person? They say, yeah, I'm a businessman, very important. Okay, but then they would come back first they're very enthusiastic, and I'd say I'd give them $100 or $200, but then they come back and the face is just completely blank and just like, no. And they looked almost afraid. And I thought, oh, they must have discovered, what was the penalty for some sort of false invitation.
Yeah.
And because this is a very strong dictator who rules that he does a lot of torture, and perhaps they thought it was too risky. And I thought, oh no, it was so difficult. So I tried, dozens of different attempts. Even I contacted someone who was couch surfing there to see if he could invite me, but it turned out he didn't live there anymore. And so everything was failure. And finally, I went to ask at the Canadian Embassy just to see if maybe they would know something. Because who knows, I try everything else. Because I was working all day, every day on this problem. So I thought, okay, Canadian Embassy. And there I meet like a local Cameroon guy who works there. And I told a lot of stories and jokes with him. And eventually he was sympathetic. And he said, I know how to help you. He says, I will give you a document that says that under no circumstance will the Canadian government request that you should be given a visa. And I said, okay, but I don't understand. If it says that under no circumstance will you request, then it seems that it's the opposite of helpful. And he goes, no, it's very helpful because it'll be filled with a lot of stamps and holograms and official Canadian stamps all over it, and it all will be written in French. In Guinea Equatorial, they speak Spanish. And I said, oh, I understand. And he says, when you see that the woman can't read, give the card, and when she calls me, I'll speak around in a circle. And so I said, okay, good. So I went in, and luckily the guard who was friendly with let me in to see the ambassador, and the way she sits, like very angry and like this. And she saw my papers, but she said, where is it? Where is it? And I know that she means the most impossible document, because this must be the one that everyone fails on. Because I'm sure other people have come in and failed before, but we're able to manufacture a lot of these fake documents. But one from the VIP is hard. So I say, this is the document. No, I didn't say which document. I just said, this is a document. And she looks at it, and I can see she doesn't understand. So then I draw attention to the card with the
phone number.
Yeah. And then I come back the next day, and the guard gives me a high five. And she said, I can hardly believe it. She says, never in all the years I worked here have I ever seen somebody that gets the visa. And I'm like, ooh. So I go in, and actually I have the visa. And it says, by special request of the Canadian government. So it's exactly opposite. And the guard said that she'd seen hundreds of foreigners come. They all request the visa. They all fail. And the only people who can get it are Americans have no problem. So I don't know, there's some deal with oil. Something is going on. I don't know what it is. But everybody else on earth, you can't get it.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, but I had other hard ones.
But was in America we have this general belief that being Canadian would help you raise more sympathy, or that people tend to like Canadians more than they like Americans. But did you feel that in practice, or is it bullshit? Like,
I think it's
is there any advantage?
Visa. It's pretty good visa, or a pretty good passport for visas, but there are others that are better. So, for instance, I think maybe Ireland. Like, no one's angry at Ireland, really. Yeah, that's maybe better. Poland, nobody hates Poland. So there's actually, I'm not sure with Poland because they're EU one, but maybe someone makes restrictions. But there's other countries that are even less controversial than Canada. So I had some problems from Canada, but not much. I mean, I can hardly complain. I think that maybe Canada will get you in 87% of countries visa free, so I can hardly complain. But some of them are a little bit better. And America even seems slightly better than Canada if you look at just what visas they need. But it's actually worse because sometimes the Americans have to pay a lot more, especially in South America. It's more expensive. Yes. Yeah, it's more expensive. Yes. And some people just say no to the Americans. So like for Iran, for the longest time, it was very hard for the Americans. Some countries just say no to them altogether. Like for instance, trying to get into Sudan, there's an American guy ahead of me in line, and the guy just said, never in my life will I give any visa to any American.
How did okay, but did he have a similar attitude towards Canada?
Well, then I come afterward applying for a visa with Canada, and he made objections that were difficult to deal with, quite hilarious actually, where he wanted me to go to the embassy to get a special document saying that I was able to use my passport as the document to get a visa. And of course my embassy was insisting that the passport is the document, there's not another document. But I kept going back and forth like that. So eventually I got it through non-standard means.
So when you start this, okay, it was 23 years altogether, right?
Yeah.
Heavily. But in the beginning, I imagine you didn't get out of Canada thinking, I'm going to spend the next 23 years visiting every other country, right? Was that a goal that end up being that way, or is it something that gradually transformed into that idea, or did you have that plan from the beginning?
I would say I had the plan from the beginning, but the feasibility in my own mind of the plan would oscillate. So when I first started out, I thought, oh yeah, I should visit all the countries because that would be fun. But I didn't know anything about traveling or anything about how big the planet was. I just thought it would be fun to visit all the countries. I didn't know that maybe everyone visits all the countries. I had no idea. But so at first I was very enthusiastic toward the project. And then I began to travel, and I noticed that like half a year has passed or a year, and I can look on a map what I've explored. And I'm like, ooh, actually, this is probably impossible. And I can see. And then I thought, probably nobody has seen all the countries. But then I carry on. And then, sometimes when you use something like you've seen all of Asia, or you've seen all of South America or North America, you start to think, oh, okay, well, maybe it's possible. So then I'd get, more of a burst of energy. Maybe I put another 5 or 6 years into it. Then I'd look again at the map and say, oh, actually, I'm missing still a huge amount. And but then toward probably the last 4 years, I knew I could complete it. So once I've been out for 19 years of travel.
Did you start with one continent more than others, or were you going kind of randomly? Did you have any order?
I had no order at first, but at first I didn't really need an order because I just arrived in an area and there were so many places I hadn't seen and so many people saying you should see this or see this, like all these interesting people suggesting ideas that I found I didn't really need to have an order. But then later I noticed I was getting inefficient to the point where there's no way I could complete the project. Because let's say I would go into Thailand, which I'd been before, and then I'm meeting people saying we should go to the north of Thailand in a particular cave complex to spelunk where I hadn't been before. But then I noticed that a month has passed, and I'd say, actually I've been like 8 times to Thailand, and now I'm doing again. Like I have to be more organized to go to places that I haven't been as much. So then I changed from a spoke and hub type of travel where I try to make like a base of operations and do travel in the area. And I changed over to entirely freestyle. So this was maybe in the last 10 years of the project. I changed over to just freestyle, where I just go country after country, relying on a credit card. And I wouldn't, go back to any sort of base of operations. I would try to increase my visa application skill so I could apply from anywhere. And yeah, that worked better.
Okay. And so...
But for me, what I really wanted to do, though, was live with tribal people and go to places that other people wouldn't go as much. So, if I could get out into the jungle of Congo, for instance, and live with the pygmies as I was several times, this was ideal. And I didn't want to just go into the capital city, even though I don't mind to do that too. But I didn't want to be the sort of person who just go to the places you'd first think of when like, for instance, if you think of Democratic Republic of Congo, you're probably thinking of Kinshasa, and maybe a few other things in mind, Stanleyville, which is now called Kisangani. But I didn't want to be just hitting on those, maybe flying between them. It wasn't enough for me. I wanted to actually get out and see the tribal people and the ancient cultures and how people actually live. And it made it much more time-consuming and much more fun as well.
Over 23 years, for most people I ask, so how did you pay for this? But being such a long project, I would like to ask it differently. What was the system you had along the way that you could keep making money? Because you didn't start billionaire, right?
No.
So somehow you had systems or strategies that you made money as you leave. Now at this point, it's not even make money as you travel. It's make money as you leave. So how did you finance this entire thing?
Okay, well, I made a discovery that I'm both very good and very bad at business at the same time. So I'm very good at thinking of an excellent business idea, and it produces like dog choking wads of cash. And really, it's quite astonishing how much money I can make in such a short time. But then I'm very bad at business because I would then cancel it, take my money, put it in my bag, and I start to travel. So I think 6 or 7 times I've had different ideas for a business, and I would notice them while traveling because I'd be going along and I see thousands of opportunities, and people would talk to me at length about sometimes what they're doing, you know, if they're expats and they're making a lot of cash. And sometimes I see an opportunity and go, wow, this one can really make a lot of money quickly. And then I would say, okay, and in a way it's a risk because I would take everything I had, I'd call it my float, like maybe I'd have 50 grand that I had from previous businesses left over, minus all my travel expense. And I would put all that money into this new business. And then I feel kind of like, whew, okay, I'm all in. And then usually it involved having something manufactured and shipped. So I just keep traveling. And finally, after months and months, I think, okay, my containers are arriving, and wherever it was I wanted to sell them. And I would fly back and handle the business for maybe a month. And then I would have a huge stack of cash. Luckily, I was always successful. So then my 50,000 investment had become like 250,000. And I go, oh, wow, 200 grand. That'll I can travel a long time on that. And travel didn't used to be very expensive either. So then many, many years would pass, and then I would do it again. And sometimes they were less successful. I only got a few years out of it. But, you know, for me, if I work 2 months in 3 years, that's good.
Wow, yeah.
Like
Give me one example of those opportunities that you found and you made a bunch of money out of it.
Okay, here's an example that for me caused the most stress. And it was because I invested everything that I was worth into wooden chickens.
Wooden chickens?
Yeah, statues of wooden chickens. And it's because I met this guy named Dewata, and he was carving wooden chickens in the jungle in his town.
In what country?
It was in Bali, in Indonesia, but out in the countryside, not where the tourists go. He was even outside of Ubud, many kilometers. And I thought, okay, I'm looking at his carving, and these chickens are amazing. Like, they're way better than any other chickens or statues you see. Like, really, like, he had the chicken even look like it was looking somewhere, and you could see it was like alive. And he had small ones, medium. He had probably, maybe like 10 or 20 different designs he'd make of chickens. And they all looked very different, and beautiful painting. And some of the painting had sanding and other work on it to make it look a bit aged or a bit interesting in different ways. And I was saying, how much are these chickens? And he's telling me, and he's not the guy who sells to the tourists. He's the guy who sells to 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 the guy who's on the beach, who comes up with a chicken and says, do you want to buy one? And you're like, go away, I'm trying to sunbathe here. So I was hearing like the lowest price, his actual lowest price, it'd be like $1.50 for his chicken. Or the biggest rooster, beautifully done, was $7.50. And I thought, these are like works of art. Like, I can sell them for 4 times this easily. So I said to him, how many chickens do you have? And he shows me like all the chickens he's made over his lifetime, and he's got all this family and village help him to make these chickens. And I said, I want to buy all of your chickens.
Buy everything.
All of them. All of them. Yeah, all of your chickens. So I buy like something like $50,000 worth of chickens, and I ship them. And this was my float. So now I'm going off credit card. I don't have any money. Like if someone says, what possession do you have? I say, I have no possessions. I have no money. I'm a debt in credit card. And he said, well, except for I own chickens that are in a container crossing the ocean. And so for me, it makes me a bit stressed, right? Thinking, oh, no. But
all my investment is in a bunch of chickens in a container.
Yeah, and if these chickens sink because the container goes down, then I lose them all. But anyway, finally, I get the notice. The container has arrived in Seattle. So I fly back to North America. I land it. And I think, okay, now what? I know I have a good chickens. I'm looking at them again. I unpack them again. I'm like, wow. So good. So then I speak to this woman who rents kiosk time in malls, like shopping malls. And I say, where are the shopping malls where the most rich women, like really rich women, walk through all the time? And she said, well, there's one, I forget even the names of these malls now, but there was 2 in Vancouver. And she said a lot of rich women come right through the atrium, through the front door. And I said, how much for one day to be right there where they all see me? And she said, $100 a day. And I said, okay, give me 10 days, 10 days. So I pay her $2,000. I rent a truck and I take my chickens. I park them close. I put my kiosk, because I had a kiosk. I expected I would do this. So I had a kiosk made in Asia, a very fine metalwork. And I just set up my kiosk in the mall. I put my chickens. And I don't put so much, I have a place hidden with many boxes because I don't want people to see that I have so many of them. I want them to think it's like works of art. Where
Yeah,
I few, right?
yeah, they are rare.
Yeah, and then the women would come through and they can't resist. They would see these, and it's almost like you were trying to sell like a banana pancake at the hippie festival or something. So they would say, you know, give me 5, give me 10, just like. And in 20 days, I sell all the chickens, and I sell them for 4 times what I paid. So now $150,000 profit minus $2,000 from I paid to her and minus the shipping, but still it's good. You know, and then I put in my bag. I go travel. See, here's why I'm a bad businessman. Now, a good businessman would think, "What do you make so much money from?"
You would be selling chickens all over the world.
Yeah, you should
right?
be like the chicken man. All you do is you make these chickens because you can do the same thing. Okay, I did it in Vancouver, only in 2 shopping malls.
Yeah.
Okay, I could do the same thing in Calgary, Seattle, Los Angeles.
You could have 50 cities. You could make like $20 million selling chickens.
Exactly. So I could have done this for 1 year to make this. You know, I would have had to subcontract someone to make a bigger factory to make the chickens and all this. But this is how the businessman thinks. He's a Dewada, I want to speak to you. How about I invest? I make a wood factory for you, like this kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, there were some Germans doing it at the time. They're trying to make these wood factory and trying to increase the production for some of these guys. But for me, I'm not a good businessman because I had this pile of money and I'm just thinking of what travel I can afford with this. So I'm like, I'm going.
Exactly. It's very common that businessmen, which I don't talk about it without respect. I someone has to, to keep things being built. Someone has to learn engineering so the train arrives on time, and someone needs to do the airplane thing correctly so it doesn't fall out of the sky. So some people have to do it. But there is no rule, there is no natural rule that says that if you made money, you need to keep doing it.
Mm-hmm.
There is no rule that says you cannot just take your profits, put that in a backpack, and go live your life,
Mm-hmm.
To me, that is a completely acceptable, fine way of continuing that with your life, because you're looking at it from the point of view of your life, not from the point of view of business, right?
Yeah,
so
money was a means to what I really wanted. I didn't really want the money, but I wanted the travel.
Exactly. And it's very easy to find people that own a business, owns a restaurant, owns a factory, and every time you talk to the guy, he's stressed. Like, he's low energy, he's tired, he's stressed out. And what he really would like to be doing is, riding a motorcycle across, Route 66.
Yeah.
He would like to be sailing somewhere, but instead he's there taking care of the business.
Yeah.
So that is a conflict that the business is important. It's building the resources that will take care of a family or that will take care of a community. But as a person, you have to think of what are your real priorities, right?
Yeah, and for my priorities, I don't need to accumulate money necessarily. I mean, I know a lot of people who've accumulated a lot of money. That's fine for them.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, I want experiences.
Mm-hmm. In those experiences, of course, you went through America as well. I'm curious about your experience there, being so close to your country and so close to your culture, and being something so familiar, and that as a country to count as just one. What was the most interesting that you saw there?
See, like for instance, so the last time I was in America, I was down in, actually no, I was in Maui quite recently. I was in Maui for a month, just like a month ago. But yeah, so that counts as America. Okay, well, the most interesting thing I saw, even before this time in Maui, I was passing through Honolulu once. And this gave me a little bit of insight into America, because I've been out in Solomon Islands and Papua New Guinea and places that no one's even heard of, Tuvalu and, places like this, so small islands. And it was really, really fascinating there. Like, for instance, in Solomon Islands, I'd be going near to Santa Ana Island, and I saw these girls with long blonde hair. And I say, what? What is this? And someone told me that they're like blonde, but not European blonde. They're a different blonde. It's a whole different genetic mutation. They have long blonde hair. I'm like, okay. But they're very black. And
they're black with natural blonde hair.
Yeah. So, and sometimes they would have an interesting silver scar on their black cheek, because it's their mothers would take the sharpened wing bone of a fruit bat when they were babies and mark a sign of allegiance to the shark god onto their cheek. Oh, that's what I was told anyway. I mean, it seems complicated, but that's what I was told. And I was like, okay, that's pretty interesting. But then I would be talking to these people, and we'd be like going up into the jungle and finding these megapode birds that lay these giant eggs in the sand where it's volcanically hot, so they don't have to sit on them, and the sand will incubate the egg. And I even tasted some of these eggs, very tasty. So I just had all these interesting experiences going around there. But finally, I had to come back through Hawaii. And I thought, okay, I'm back in the States, and I thought, I had scheduled on my trip that I would spend like 6 days there. And I thought it should be fun to go to Hawaii again. But then I arrived, and I was coming from all these, like what I just described. Then I come to Hawaii, and I go into downtown Honolulu, and I try to find a hostel like, we're full, completely full. You should have booked like 4 months ago. I'm like, So then I'm out on the street, and I see various people walking along. And it was hard to tell, like, is he a retired, like, software company executive or a bum on the street? And you hardly know because, like, the guy who's the retired guy is also, like, an old man, kind of wrinkly skin and overly tanned, just walking, like, with his swimsuit dripping because he just went to the ocean for a swim. But the homeless guy on the street is similar, too.
Yes.
So until he's within spitting distance, you hardly know what he is. And I noticed out in the airport, there were all these homeless people living in the airport. And there I found something of interest because I watched their strategy for life. And I found they were migrating almost like the jellyfish that you see on the jellyfish lake of Palau. You know how they migrate with the sun? Well, these homeless people were pretending to be travelers so they could be allowed into the airport. So they had like these suitcases sort of taped up, but really there's nothing in the suitcase. They don't own anything. But they had these little carts to go around as if they were someone getting on a flight. And they would migrate, like it was sunny at one part of the airport in little parks. They would migrate there. Then there's another part that's better for sleeping, and they would migrate back there and sleep. So they were like the jellyfish of Jellyfish Lake. But they were American homeless people. So this is the kind of thing that I find interesting. So I would watch them,
Oh, my.
Yeah. And then I ended up actually just changing my flight and flying out early because, it's just, compared to some places, America is not always as interesting, especially the very touristy part. Though I have had some fun there. Lately I went through Arizona and I think I was in New Mexico as well. I went to Las Vegas, even though I don't care that much for gambling, but it's kind of just interesting to see. It's a fun little road trip.
To me, Las Vegas is fun, is interesting, the same way that a good zoo is interesting. It's artificial. Those animals are not living and behaving the way they do in the wild, but doesn't mean that it's not interesting to watch them. I go to a zoo. I think it's fascinating, but when I look at people in Las Vegas, to me, it's the same thing. It's a big zoo, and you don't need to see, freak shows. The freak show is right there on the street. You just stand in front of the hotel and watch people, and you're going to see some freakish behavior.
Yeah, and some of my friends were adding to the freak show. So here in Kiev, I came to visit my friend Donnie, who has the TIU Crescedic Hostel. And when he was in Las Vegas, he had quite an adventure. So I couldn't because I was with my younger brother and his kids, and it's like a family road trip. But when he was there, he was near the fountain in front of the Bellagio. And the fountain's going. It's quite a big affair, and thousands of people are watching. And he was there with a friend, and they pulled off all their clothes and they jumped into the fountain. And they started swimming out to where the jets are. And of course, this is totally illegal. But everyone's cheering and laughing. And then the police were coming, and the police are trying to guess where they're going to go because 100% of the time they catch the guys who do this. Because the police are waiting. You do this. It's like public exposure and everything. You can't jump into Bellagio fountain naked and splash around.
You cannot disturb the entertainment in Las Vegas.
Yeah. So the police were waiting for them, but they managed to get to the out to the side and jump up the wall. And they escaped. So they ran naked and they escaped, and the police didn't catch them. So he's even got video of this. So he's a crazy guy. But me, not so much. I was just there in a normal way. I tried to get my younger brother to get drunk, but I was unsuccessful. I was trying to order, extra, what was it now, margaritas. But after a bit, he said, "No, I have to watch my kids." But this was my secret plan. Unsuccessful.
Yeah. I find life in America generally, of course, convenient and interesting, and to me, it's a fascinating country by the opportunities and the initiative that people take there. Sometimes I keep thinking that a business like SpaceX or Tesla could only happen in America. And I'm still convinced that is still true. And when you look at of a few days ago, I was watching this conference in which some scientist was telling about the difference between the colleges in America and the colleges in all over the world, and he explained very convincingly why is it that where it comes to not just the quality of the high tech colleges, but also the way they integrate seamlessly with the startups and the companies and the research that happens outside the college, and the way that a lot of these projects spin off as new companies and new businesses. America is a light year ahead of everybody else. That no other country affords such ease of structure and financing and availability of people and investors and interest as America does. So that is our strategic advantage.
Yeah, and there's another advantage for America. Like I've talked many times to people who have business in Russia, because I have a lot of friends there, and they would explain that when someone is doing a Russian who has very good business ideas, they have to go to America to try to implement them. And because when you try in Russia, it's just a good way to describe Russian economy is like in Ecuador, there's a walking tree. So it's a tree where it has these various roots, and slowly through the movement of the roots, the tree can just barely get along. But the Russian economy is a lot like the walking tree. So if you see some progress in the economy, it's from all the little people working so hard, and their roots can slowly do this or that, and the tree can move a bit. But it's the tree at all times has to remain upright. So the trunk of the tree is like the oligarchs and their businesses they never have to tip or be in any danger. And as a result, the little roots have to work very hard, and slowly the tree can move around. But in America, the different structure of the economy, they allow true disruption and true danger for even some of the larger companies. I mean, it's not always the case. Some of the bigger ones get involved in politics, they lock themselves in, and then it's more like Russia. But for some of the smaller or medium ones, or even some of the businesses that involve the big companies, it is possible that they can be disrupted. And if you're someone who's trying to be very successful at business, you're trying to disrupt the economy, and that you'll push out and take market share from people who are established. And most places will say no to this, because when you become rich because you own a company, you become politically powerful, you're able to use your political influence to shut down an attempt by someone else to move into that. So like to limit competition. And in America, it's more difficult to do that. And as a result, it's if you have something really innovative that you want to do, you can go to America and you'll probably succeed there first.
Yeah. I think that SpaceX is a great example of that. Where they start something that was absolutely counterintuitive. It was almost certain to be a financial failure. They are pushing around Boeing and Grumman and NASA is helping them. NASA has been. It wasn't Elon that said that. It was some other guy in space technology that he said that NASA has been nurturing SpaceX and some other business, because NASA sees the opportunity that they can build things and solve problems faster and at lower cost than NASA can do, and then they can be suppliers to NASA. So their view is that in the future, the race to Mars, for example, will still be led and organized by NASA, but it will be executed by this combination of many independent private companies that are finding solutions, and they are all coming from the universities and the entrepreneurs in America. A lot of them, like SpaceX, are immigrants. Remember that Elon Musk is South African, right? But then he moved to Canada and quickly moved to America because he thought that, okay, that is where the business opportunity is. So to me, it's a fantastic country in that sense. It is a young country as well. That just like young people, it makes the mistakes, and it has the lack of elegance of young people. But it has energy. It has an enthusiasm. that shows through everything. It shows through its politics and its business and the attitude of people and how much they believe in themselves.
Mm-hmm.
The self-reliance of Americans is notorious.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is a good quality.
Yeah.
Self-reliance is a quality that people should adopt.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of those things that is a good example. So I like that. But then I also like in Europe, the elegance of a more careful decision making.
Yeah.
I like
where they keep their whole culture and history
exactly.
in mind.
I like the elegance of preserving
Mm-hmm.
culture and history, and I like the way that things are carefully laid out and everything looks really cool. And sometimes they are more open in Europe to look at science instead of just looking at religion or just
Mm-hmm.
looking at that's the way that we always did it. But they tend to be bound by tradition a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not mindless tradition. Sometimes they think, oh, maybe to solve this problem we should adopt a new way. Then at the same time, they do everything by consensus, so their decisions tend to be slow.
Yeah.
But there is a certain kind of wisdom
Mm-hmm.
in that, that I think is very complementary. So sometimes people ask me where is the best place in the world to me, and I say unequivocally the best place in the world is Europe and US.
Mm-hmm. But
it's them at the same time.
If I was only after money, though, I would go to Africa now.
Yeah?
Africa is so young.
Uh-huh.
Like everywhere, it's instead of seeing like in Vienna, maybe you see cafes. Well, in Africa, schools. Just like school, and you hear the roar of the kids. There's thousands of kids in all these schools, and they're amazingly young, and their pyramid of demographics is like kids, and then like a few older people. So there's a lot of energy, and if you could get in there and do business, you don't really have to even be a very good businessman. Yeah. You just have to be the kind of guy who's not drunk and you actually show up for work. Yeah. So even that puts you at a high level. And if you have the further advantage where a lot of the African businessmen are constrained by a traditional form. It's not socialism, but it's feudalism. And in a sense, they're both kind of command sort of economies where there's obligations that are contrary to what you'd expect for capitalism. So, for instance, if you were an African businessman, you would have this entire extended family that you're very aware of, and they're very aware of you. And if you start to do a bit better, you're expected to give more to them. And it's not just a nuclear family, it's an extended family. So in a sense, there's a disincentive for you to become very successful because then everyone's coming to you for loans and, my daughter needs to go to school, but I can't afford the uniform. Like everything else would take away from your profit, you can't really succeed. But if you were someone come from an outsider who arrives there,
you don't have that weight on
you don't. So you can use all that money to put into the business to grow it. So if you just wanted to become the millionaire as quickly as possible, which is not my situation, but maybe some people are in that, Africa business.
There is a word that when you use it, it jumped at me because I think it was the first time that I heard it, feudalism. Instead of socialism, it's feudalism. I never heard it before.
Yeah. Well, here's an example. Like, for instance, here's an example of why I think there's a strong connection between socialism and feudalism. And it's because if you imagine, like, a lot of people were laughing when I was in Papua New Guinea. They were laughing at the cargo cult people. So they have a religion where they thought that, they saw Australians, they saw Americans getting a lot of cargo coming in, especially during World War II. And they were thinking, well, how do they get these material resources? Because it's not like us where we have to plant the garden and we have to hunt for the tree kangaroo and like this. And it seems almost inexplicable why they have so much material wealth and us not. And they thought, it must be because the ancestors give them the wealth, because they put certain rituals. And they said, well, let's do the same ritual as them, and maybe our ancestors will come and give us wealth also. We'll have planes coming, and we'll have boats coming.
I have a friend from Benin that lives in Miami now, and he told me something very interesting once that you may recognize. He said that in Benin, sometimes you may live in a village, and you need to walk like 2-3 kilometers to the road. And in the road, you will sit and wait for a bus. And the bus will show up or not.
Mm.
You know,
Yeah.
or maybe a truck will show up and will give you a ride, or maybe a car will give you a ride. You don't know, right? But something may happen,
Mm.
or the bus may happen, and you
Yeah.
take the bus. So in their language, the way they express that is that they are waiting for an opportunity.
Mm.
So it's an opportunity to get to the city, right? But the word they use is the same word for opportunity, the way that we use the word, right?
Mm.
So, or sometimes they would go to the road, and 6 hours later they would be back home, and
Yes.
their mother would ask, "So what happened?" "Oh, I didn't find an opportunity."
Mm.
You know, so I love that, to use that word like that, to think of that word like that.
Mm.
So when I'm laying out a social media campaign that is going to tell where I'm going to be and is going to try to attract people, what I'm thinking is I am creating a campaign to find opportunities.
Mm.
And you may ask, opportunity for what? I don't know. I'll
Yeah.
discover. I'll discover when it happens.
Yeah.
But you know,
that's the essence of freestyle traveling as well. So that's when I say freestyle traveling, that's what I mean. You just go from opportunity to opportunity,
Yeah.
and you try to have the maximum fun. You know, and not just for yourself. You're not trying to use the opportunity in a sense like you're stepping on someone to get
Yeah.
yourself ahead.
Yeah.
You're trying to together have a good life, and as a result, you move forward and you see more and you learn more. I remember something very funny about Benin. So when you were mentioning Benin, of course, it came to mind this sea shanty, like an old sailor's poem, and it was "Beware and take care of the bite of Benin. For one that comes out, there's 40 goes in." It used to be a very dangerous country. Their king had like skulls on the bottom of his throne, and
Wow.
he was prone to. Actually, nearby there was an unusual case where there was I think it used to be called Dahomey, and it was the only country named after the killing of someone named Dan. So if I ever meet someone called Dan, which every so often you do meet a Dan, usually they're unaware that there used to be a country named after the killing of Dan. Because it was one of the kings near to Benin, and he said, "I really hate this guy named Dan. He was a rival king." He said, "I'm going to kill Dan and plant a tree in his spilled guts, and the tree will grow, and then it shows how I've defeated him." And sure enough, that happened. So then he named his entire country Dahomey, which means Dan's spilled guts.
Wow.
Yeah. And then, of course, later it was changed to Benin. But it was the only country named after.
That's badass.
Yeah, but there you can see why maybe for one that comes out, there's 40 goes in, because it was a pretty.
It reminds me of the story of this lady that lives in Alaska. I'll try to find her name and put it on this podcast. She's famous. She used to live, or still lives out of town in Alaska. I mean, way out of town, like the nearest neighbor, like 10 miles away. And once she was attacked by a bear, and the bear broke her skull, broke her hip, broke her leg, cut her. It was like being attacked by a bear is not going to be a good day for you. And it was a pretty bad day for her, and she got unconscious, of course. The bear probably looked at her, she looks like she's dead, and the bears tend to leave you alone when you look dead, So the bear left her alone then, but she was all fucked up. And when she woke up, she couldn't walk because her leg was broken, hip broken, all damaged. And so she crawled back to her home, a reasonable distance. So she took like a couple days crawling back home, and she got to the home, but she couldn't go to the upper floor where there was a radio to call for help. Yeah. So she just lay down on the floor and waited to die. And by coincidence, a neighbor came up, and found her. Yeah. That way. So they took her to the hospital. It took her months to recover, and and she had to to walk, get back into walking and all that. But she recovered, and she went back. She killed that bear, and she ate it. Yeah. Now that is badass.
Yeah. I used to get situations like sometimes, in Canada, I live really out in the wilderness. Mm-hmm. And there's one time there was a neighbor came to me. And he said, "Do you want to help me eat a mountain lion?" And I was saying, I don't know, it doesn't sound very tasty.
Uh-huh.
And I said, why do you have this mountain lion? And he said, well, there was a mountain lion coming to the edge of the forest, and it was sitting all day, every day, watching his kids play in the backyard.
Ooh.
And eventually, after 4 days, he got so nervous that he shot it. And he said, I'm worried that people will find I shot the thing. And I said, don't worry, just take it into the forest. So I pointed, take it halfway up that hill and leave it. The wolves will eat it. It's not a problem.
Yeah.
But yeah, they can be a bit dangerous. Like I had a mountain lion try to kill me one year. Made a pretty serious effort.
Man, your story is fascinating.
Maybe I'll tell one more story, just because we were on the subject of wild animals. So it's kind of an interesting subject. But I've had various run-ins with wild animals. So I had wild elephants try to kill me at various times, other animals. But I think the most serious wild animal that almost killed me was a mountain lion a long time ago in British Columbia.
Wow.
So I was high up on the mountain, and I was doing night hiking, where you're walking along, but you can't see where you're going, just going by moonlight. And I was several kilometers up a mountain. It was very steep. It was almost like if it was a ski hill, it would be Black Diamond. And just when I was there, I turned around, I was coming downhill, and I'd gone through a little bit of a gully, and I was coming toward where a cliff would be. And I could hear that I'd startled a large animal. And I was thinking, okay, usually it's a deer, or it could be an elk, a larger form of deer, like a wapiti, as they call sometimes. But then I could hear from, no, it's not. So, and then I could hear also that it was following me. And I thought, okay, for a test, I stopped suddenly. And then I hear like 1 footstep, 2 footsteps, just the beginning, it stops too. And I go, oh no, it's a mountain lion. Because a bear would not be so cognizant of trying to be sneaky, but a mountain lion is used to stalking and killing. And I said, oh no, I know which mountain lion it is, because it was the one that did so much damage to my backpack before. Because I was trying to get a drink, and I put down my backpack, and I was drinking from a stream. And the mountain lion came out and whoosh, it slashed my backpack. And its claws went through, when you have double stitching, all the black nylon with the foam inside. It cut it open through both double stitching and halfway through the foam and the nylon. So you could open it up like a mouth. And this is where the central claw went, and the other claws did lesser damage on either side. So I knew it had very sharp claws, and it was kind of nasty. And I thought, oh, okay, this is the one then, and now he's after me. And I thought, well, he better not understand that I can't see, or he'll attack for sure and kill me. So I had to walk then as if I could see. So usually, with night hiking, I would just go with a little glimmer of moonlight. I try to guess. But here I had to walk, very confidently and walking along. But I was never minding my feet so much more, like even more in London subway where they say mind your feet and mind the step. I really had to mind them at all times because they were extreme drops. And I had to be able to detect that with my toes before I'd step over one and kill them myself. And if I even stumbled, I'm sure it would attack. So it followed me within 10 meters, all the way down for many, many kilometers I went through. And how I kept it off was, if I ever heard it make a bit of a mistake, like it rustled a leaf, I'd look back exactly where it rustled the leaf, as if I could see it. But really, I could only hear it. I could see nothing. And I would look as if I can see you, so don't be playing these tricks, like that kind of attitude. And I keep walking even though I can't see. And I made it down for maybe an hour, and I was trying to get to where I was camping, which was just a piece of hawthorn wood that I'd cut, holding up a bit of plastic, and I was just sleeping on the side of the hill where I leveled it out a bit. And I actually overshot. It's hard to guess where it was, so I overshot where I was sleeping. And but then I noticed this one tree that came up, and it was like a J, where it came up and it sort of curved, then it went back to where it was, and it kept going up. And I thought, I recognize this tree because I'd been up there a month before with a girlfriend I used to have from Victoria. And we'd been taking some magic mushroom and looking at the tree, going, so I remember that tree. And so from there, I just moved to the darkness, and I made it to my camp. And I thought, okay, now I'm in my camp, so it must go away. But no, it was right up to my camp, and it was just circling me. I was looking at it, and I could tell where it was, and it's getting a little bit lighter now, I can really tell. And then it continues this, and it's even getting into morning. And then it would come up to me, and it would flatten its ears, and it didn't make the mountain lion sound like, I can't even make that sound, but they can make that very loud. It didn't make that sound. It would just flatten its ears and come at me. And so I grabbed the only thing I had, which was a piece of hawthorn wood, and I would swing at it to bat it in the head. But I wouldn't overswing because I noticed it was being clever. And when I would swing, it would try to get inside my swing. So I had to be able to swing and check it and redirect and swing again to make it back off. And it would come in like an attack like this every so often. And I had to keep responding. And for me, this is kind of stressful.
Yes, I bet. I bet it is stressful.
So I had a lot of other stress on my mind. I was sick with the giardia, and I had some other problems, but this was my biggest problem. But I also had another problem on my mind that my girlfriend was coming up again to see how I was doing, and she was going to walk up the mountainside, and she knew where I was camping. And I thought, oh no, if it killed, she's doing 2 days. If it kills me, it could still be eating me, and she would come and see, and it would attack and kill her. So I had to wait for in an interval between its attacks, and I had to make I wrote a little piece of paper, and I put, if you don't find me and you call for me and I'm not here, go downhill and leave because a mountain lion has killed me, and I don't want that it kills you too. So I make this, I nail it onto the tree in a place where I thought even if it rains, this thing can preserve for a few days at least. This is the only time I ever had to write a note such as that. And but eventually I was able to beat the mountain lion away. I thought I might have been too much trouble. They made a little bit of trouble the next day, but never to the point of attacking. And finally I was okay. But yeah, that's probably one of my biggest stress from animals. I had also, in Gabon, I had a forest elephant that was very aggressive. And the guy beside me was very knowledgeable, told me if it really gets about to kill us, go inside of these, there was a tree with a lot of roots coming off the bottom of it. He said, go inside of these roots, and as it tries to spear you with its tusks, move around to the other side. So you're always on the other side, but you're within the cage of the roots. And I said, okay, it's good to know. But, sometimes animals can be dangerous. But I'm waiting for 2 things from my brother, and he's not contacting me. He had I know he has a book on his collection called Jerry Potts, Plainsman. And it's about a Plains native who, there's a whole bunch of stories of this, exceptional native plainsman who used to guide people across the Great Prairies about 100 years ago. But one of the stories was that there was a native guy who went into a trading center and he put down some furs. And in return, he got a bunch of Hudson Bay blankets. But then when he stepped outside, someone stabbed him in the belly with the knife. He was like, "Urgh." So then the guy ran away. So he actually went back into the trading center, and he put down two blankets, and he said, "I want less blankets. Can you give me needle and thread?" And the guy gave him the needle and thread, and then he went sewed himself up, and then kept walking. And it always struck me how tough he was, and I wanted to use that as an example when I was talking about certain native tribes. And I know my brother has it in his bookshelf, but he hasn't responded yet. So this is the kind of the level of detail I am now. When I wrote through, I put, try to find that quote from that book. And then now I've actually, I'm trying to actually get the quote. And I find that Google is better now. For instance, there was something I was trying to put in last year. I tried to Google it, couldn't find it. I Googled it this year, I found it. So it was that joke maybe you've heard about we struggled and we shed so much blood and tears to bring a new system into the world. Unfortunately, it was the wrong system. So this is like a joke about communism. Really, I tried for half an hour to Google that last year. And this year, I Googled it, and
people keep adding. I remember you talking about some notes you made somewhere once, and you were regretting that you didn't take better notes.
Yeah,
I should have. But then later you couldn't find that online. Maybe now you can. If you keep searching it again.
I can try again.
You should try again.
Because
I thought keeps improving.
Yeah, because I think that was so funny, and unfortunately I can't get it physically because I can't go to Syria to get it.
Yeah, I think that the biggest problem, if some aliens come from another planet and come over and talk to us, what is going to be really, really difficult is how do we explain Facebook? Because we are going to show them, wow, we have these devices and these phones and stuff, and we have all this technology, and then we use that to criticize each other, to attack each other, and to post picture of cats, right?
Yeah.
So, and I bet the aliens are going to go no, we'll kill you all, right? We are going to kill you all.
Did you ever see that cartoon where they were making? It had to do with Star Trek, but the Star Trek people, I think they took cuts from the old Star Trek, and they have them come to the planet Earth, and then they're trying to see what's going on here, and they get involved in the internet, and then Sulu is posting pictures of cats, and then there's who was it, like, some of these pop stars that are really outrageous, come onto the screen. And they're like, what is it?
No,
I should send to you.
Okay.
Yeah, it's really funny.
About relationships, how did that work with you? Because with me, I end up, being polyamorous helps because I can be very honest, with the girls, and I tell, look, this is my lifestyle, and I have, these great relationships, and I'm not going to be monogamous, and I'm not going to do it in a classic way, and and find an apartment with someone and get married and then have some big little monsters. And I'm not going to do that shit. So I'm very honest about it from the beginning, and it has been working out pretty good. I have good relationships that keep lasting, and we keep seeing each other. But I didn't do this for 23 years. So I wonder how it worked with you.
Well, at first I found girls who were willing to go traveling. I think maybe they had in their mind that we do a certain amount of traveling and then stop. So I had like the first 10 or 12 years that I was traveling, I usually had a girlfriend of some kind. And she'd be somewhere like, even toward the first, I was traveling with one girlfriend all the time. Then I was traveling with this one girlfriend. Actually, she was with me all the time too. We do a little bit of business together. She makes $500,000 a year now in Indonesia, just carrying on with stuff. Like, she actually just continued with businesses that I would just stop and go traveling. She would say, "Can I just continue with that?" And I would say, "Yeah." So she makes $500,000 a year now. But then I had other ones who were more like, I had a Kazakh girlfriend who worked for the UN, and that suited me because I could meet her in different countries around the world. Or another one who was Swiss, who used to do a lot of traveling, but I kind of cut that off once I finished the part of Asia that she really favored, because then I wasn't seeing her as much. So this carried on for about 12 years. Then I would have, like, it's more like sporadic, like months would go by, and then maybe I sleep with some woman once, and then like months would go by, and then maybe once with some woman again, like that. And then as I got older, over 40, it was even less.
Well, with me, as I will not say as age set in, that's not the right answer. What happens is that my patience has changed. My mind has changed. I have a lot less patience to bullshit. Bullshit of any kind. I noticed, for example, that when an American comes here to Ukraine, and people ask, "Oh, so you're here for a girl? Like you found a girl or something?" No, I have girls everywhere I go. It doesn't matter. They can barely believe that you can be here and not be here because of girls.
Yeah, it's not because of girls. I'm here actually because it's quiet and I can work.
Yeah, and it's affordable and it's friendly and safe. Have some. This is salami. This is Italian style salami. So it's such a convenient place to be. I even consider that I may do this again. I just spent a year here, and I'm not opposed to do this once more, because it's such a nice country to stay.
But now I'm more accessible to the girls because I'm ahead of my work, so I don't feel stressed that the deadlines and all that. And remember, I can't screw up in this work because I don't have any money. So I have now
to finish this now.
Yeah, I have to finish this, then I get money again. So I'm at the interval. I'm almost like with the chickens, That's me now with the chickens.
I wrote, I don't know if I sent you, I wrote a book about my runs across America.
I don't think you sent.
I'll send you a link so you can look at it. But I did it without having any expectation of publishing it in a traditional way. It was an exercise. I said that I needed to write what I say so later I can understand what I know, what I think. So I have to read what I say to understand what I think. In that sense, it worked perfectly.
I would always write notes to friends. They'd say, "What you doing now?" And I would write, what happened to me, like in northern Benin, all of this. And if I'd never done that, when the people came to me and they said, "Are you interested in a contract? Write your memoirs of your book," I would have had to say no. Because I can't remember in sufficient detail. But because I did this, which was not for any commercial reason, I just thought it's interesting to me to tell my friends around the world, what was happening here or here or here. I had all of these notes, 4,000 pages of handwritten notes. I had probably 4,000 pages of email notes where my friends would say, "What's it like? Where you are," and I would describe what happened and all that, and all these amusing stories and adventures. And I can know for a fact that I wouldn't remember them if I didn't record them, because I had some stories I used to be accustomed to tell. People would ask about what happened in Afghanistan. I would tell the story. But when I go back to the notes, I find the experience was actually so much richer. So I've been shortening it over time to make it more acceptable to tell. Like when you're drunk in the bar, you can still tell the story. After a while, I've been forgetting the details. But with the details, we're so much more interesting.
I don't even trust my own memories, and especially other people's memories, because we have such strong biases, and we tend to reconstitute memory from imagination instead of record.
I have a very extreme example of that just a few days ago. I contacted my friend Molly, who's she does photographs of the underground party scene. So she has a book out where she explores this. And I said, I just wrote about Tibet. And I said, was it so that I described a certain table and we were having conversations, and I said, it was the couple that were from York, and yourself and Chad and me. And she said, no, Chad wasn't there. And I said, oh shit! Now that you remind me, yeah, Chad didn't arrive till 2 days later. And I go back to what I've written. So I've written this as my chapter. I had all of 5 of us at the table because we were having.
So you wrote it as if he's there, but that was a result of your imagination.
It was my imagination.
Your imagination filling up the gaps.
Yeah, and she told me he doesn't arrive till 2 days later, and I go, oh yeah, you're right. You're right. Now I remember. And okay, I have to make this correction. Yeah. And I think what made me think that he was there was because we were talking about him. Because I think they asked me about him, and I was explaining some things, and it led to funny experience. But it made me think that he was there, but he was not there. So there's too much of that, and I found a lot of that when I went back to my notes. I had to really correct things and keep them real. But why I speak to Molly is because she has an extreme memory. And for her, things are important. I think that's why it's so extreme. For her, it's important, and she cares exactly who was at the table. And, was it in August or July we did that? Like she really cares about stuff like that. She's a photographer, also. Part of the reason she wants to capture the moment and have it. It's all documented. So she's an excellent person to talk to when it comes to that. Because for me, I don't really care so much. I mean, I'm not saying I would imagine in the future that I don't know, perhaps Richard was here with us. It's not like I would be that much off.
No,
but I don't care as much as him.
I like to write essays. I like to write ideas. Okay, I have this idea that this is bullshit or this is interesting.
That's
but I don't like to write memoirs. Even when I wrote about my run across the country, I called that 100 Days of Madness, and I talk it from the point of view of what are the things that people do that seem to be crazy. They don't make any sense, and I use that as the thing linking everything together. Not the run, not my notes day by day, because I think that is, in my case, it's very boring. But sometimes I was thinking that there must be a way to tell people what I have in mind, and I discovered the way. The way is this: the podcast.
Okay.
Because on the podcast, we expose your ideas. It's your experience, and then I can reflect with a little bit of mine. A tiny bit.
Yeah.
But on the combination of all the podcasts together, it's going to show the way I think. But it has to be just a little bit at a time.
Yeah.
Because for several reasons. One is that if I make a podcast about just what I think, it's going to be fucking boring, because 2 or 3 hours of it, I will tell everything I know, right? So
it's like also with the band, sometimes you get bored of the band, but like you pay for a concert, but you get bored of the band before. You almost wish that another band could come in.
Yes, exactly. But if I show what I think in reflection reflection of what is your experience, then it allows me to criticize or to learn, because sometimes you know stuff that I don't, or you can elucidate something that I had no clue. So that is more rich, but also allows me to present my own ideas in a way that is not organized. Because if I try to put that in a book, I need to make it I need to make an outline. This is everything that I want to talk about, and these are the chapters.
Oh, I had to do that.
Yeah, so, and that is so rigid. But if I am doing that during a conversation over beer, I don't need to follow any format. I can throw away, any crazy shit that I have in my mind. I need to fit or not. And with different people, by doing the podcast with several different people, I can throw those things when they fit, and not in any arbitrary order. So I believe that the combination of all the podcasts over like a year or two of doing it will be something that I can watch 20 years from now, and I can know how I used to think.
Yeah, because it is how you used to think. Because you're not ever the same person.
No,
your person changes.
I'll be something different, but I can know how I used to think in the year 2016, 2017.
Because for me, I've gone through extreme changes. Like when I was a kid, I was extreme, vicious gangster. I didn't have any friends. Really, like at certain points, I didn't have any friends. I just look around, various potential enemies, back against the wall with guns, like this. And eventually I got a particular girlfriend, and I was trying to bring her to a party. And it was all Hell's Angels, and we're all like against the wall. And she was trying to say what. People seem kind of tense here. And I go, yeah, that guy wants to kill that guy. We're wondering if that starts. We've all got to get guns. And she was saying, what is this that you're at? And it's a party. And she was telling me, this is not a party. I learned through her that she was explaining there are real parties. And this is not a party. And then eventually I went out to some raves and stuff, and I saw people peaceful. And I thought, okay, it's actually better.
This is not a party. This is a prelude to a funeral.
Yeah, but I didn't like this lifestyle. So, I changed. And I became a different person when I changed. Because I was with anarchists, terrorists, people like this. They used to bomb the government, all of this kind of thing. And I'm okay, vaguely interesting, but I didn't want this life. And I see where it would lead. One of my friends was enforcer for the Hells Angels, doing a lot of beatings. Once he did charity beatings. Sometimes he'd do just beatings,
What is a charity beating?
Okay, city of Castlegar, never the woman is raped. Never. Except for, then it comes a year, I think 2000, what was it? I think like around 2002, 2003, all of a sudden, women in the town, they're being raped. And the Hells Angels boss tells to my friend who's the enforcer for Hells Angels, what the fuck? He said, we're getting a lot of complaints, with the town. The women are being raped. Find out who does this and deal with it. And he's like, okay.
We're supposed to be the only ones doing raping.
Yeah.
Not anybody else.
Yeah. So he looks around and he found that there was a guy, foreigner, not from the city. He arrived and he rented a room in the motel. He was selling date rape drug. And he was saying, hey, you want to rape women and buy this drug? You can rape her. Like this, and he's out in the street, he's selling like this. They know where he is. Even the police know where he is, but they don't have enough to
The police cannot act.
Yeah, they can't act. But my friend can act, he's Hells Angels. So he gets his group of 12 guys. He said, everybody take a baseball bat. And they kick, open the door of the motel. There he is. Boom, boom, boom. Boom, boom, boom. They beat the shit out, really, like even really they beat him. And then the police come, he can hardly move. And the police were saying, live by the sword, die by the sword. Like he was saying, arrest the people who did this. And the police just went down to the donut shop and they just filled out a report saying, because it's many men from the town, right? And really it'd be easy to arrest them in a way because there's so many men from the town. Yeah. But the police fill a report and say, we investigated and we cannot determine who did the crime.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Mike, you had a very interesting experience. You know, and you have plenty of stories. You know, we had, you know, this couple hours here, and but you know, the other day when we met, it was fabulous. Just listening to you, and in my personal way of measuring how interesting someone's life is by how many stories you have to tell.
Ooh, well, I had some
And I
people
think,
in Colombia try to test this. So I met 8 other backpackers, and they thought, let's run Mike out of stories. So they would keep asking more and more and more stories. We were together for 3 weeks, and I didn't run out, but it was becoming more difficult toward the end. So I think I have at least 300 hours.
yeah. So I know you have plenty of it. So here's my invitation to you, or my challenge to you. Let's wait until we meet again in another city. We'll do another podcast.
Okay,
We'll tell some more stories. As our paths cross around the world, we'll do more of this, because I know you have more, and I'm accumulating more myself. You know, so it has been a privilege to talk to you. And I hope and I believe that the people watching this will be inspired, you know, to see the world, to see borders not as an obstacle, but see them as a call, as a challenge to, you know, see what is on the other side,
or even an opportunity.
Yeah,
Sense of
or as an opportunity. So thank you so much. It has been awesome to have you here.
Great.
And
It's my pleasure.
thank you, everybody else. We will be on the air again soon. Bye-bye.
We hope you like this podcast as much as we like to produce it. This has been made possible by the efforts of dozens of volunteers, supporters, partners, and visionaries that are helping us build Voyager's World. Please visit our website, join us for free, and start participating.